Good afternoon. This is the Dominance Academy. I am Mr. Justin. Bit of an impromptu stream, but I have some important things to get to later today, and perhaps won't be able to stream this evening. So we're doing this. Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about women craving leadership and why they're absolutely disgusted by guys who fake it. They fake that shit, and women can sense it. Maybe not immediately, but at some point they do. So that's where we're going to be getting into. Be sure to go to Amazon, go to the description of any of the most recent videos, and you'll see a link to my books that are for sale on Amazon. This is the CODEX of the Sovereign Order. It is a book of wisdom for dominance that you can carry with you. It's small, and open it to any page and read any passage from it, even just a section of a passage, and will glean some kind of wisdom that will help you with your mindset and your view of self and the world. So something you can absolutely use. And sorry about that. And as well, I've got my other book, How to Be a Dominant Lover. That's available in the Amazon bookstore as well. Again, that link is in the description of all of my recent videos. So let's get into it. Talk a little bit about women craving leadership, why they crave leadership. And I know that, in today's climate, it's often really difficult to talk about, what women want, right? Because how dare you talk about what women want? And surely it probably would be erroneous of me to speak on all women, okay? But putting a title that long on my thumbnails would be just too difficult to say, well, in my experience, women crave leadership and they detest fake leaders, fake men, fake doms. And, because one of the things about fake men and fake doms, fake leaders, is that, oh, that's better. Sorry about that. I had my mic a little too far away. So one of the things about fake doms and fake men and fake leaders is that they're very declarative a lot of the time. Many times they'll be very declarative about, about men and about women. And this can be destructive. And then the problem is that if you do have something to say, then you kind of get put into that category of well, he's being declarative. He's making a declaration about, say, in this context, what women crave. And there'll be small pockets saying, well, I'm a woman and I don't crave that. And I'll say, okay, that's fine. But in my experience, that's not been the case. In my experience, women absolutely do crave the leadership. And I've seen this with girls that I've been with, that things have gone left, where things have crumbled. The relationship had become cancerous. And I look back, right? Because I don't really look at things as being good or bad. I look at things as part of a whole and what I can learn from them. And I think this is a mindset that a lot of guys need to adopt. I'm working with a guy right now, and he's very green. He's so green that he's nervous just about talking to girls. And he's in this mindset of what the outcome will be. Is this girl gonna be a future girlfriend, for example? And this is not the right kind of mindset. I tell him that he needs to be basically focusing on getting his reps in, meaning he should just be comfortable talking with lots of girls, and such to the point where he no longer fears their perception or judgment of him, and then that reduces his um his leaning towards wanting to be performative or feeling that he needs to be performative. And then can become more natural, and he can become more authentic with who he is. And and this is something that, like, a lot of guys face. And depending on what's going on in their psychology, that performance can be either very supplicating or it can become very domineering. And domineering is not to be confused with domination. Domination is an invitation. Domineering is a taking, it's a pulling someone into your sphere. And so, like an example of that is this guy that contacted my submissive on Facebook, and he was being very declarative, saying, like, you're going to be this is what I demand. um I'm the chooser. I'm going to see if you're worthy of me, and that sort of stuff. And it just reeked of someone who had very little experience, did not have women who were honoring and worshiping him, who uh, who revered him, who felt comfortable and relaxed around him. It did not give that feeling. um, because the thing is that when someone gets the things that they want out of life, no matter what sector it's in, often they become more relaxed. So, this is with anything, say, like food, money, opportunities, women, objects, um, like any sort of like issue like that they feel that they have lack in, they're probably going to be allowed at. And if someone has the things that they're wanting, then they tend to be a little bit more relaxed about those topics. They're not super outspoken. I mean, unless there's some sort of like freedom fighter, and that's few and far between. Most people are just selfish, me included. And, because when people get what they want, they become content. They're relaxed. So, there was this guy, and he was very outspoken. He was very locked into his views in such a way that I just couldn't see any girl being like, yeah, that's really what I need. I need this energy. And I had to call him out on it, because he was disturbing uh, girls in the community, but mostly mine. And I'm like, listen, like, you can't just like come in here like assuming that, assuming anything. So as a dominant, if you're ever approaching a girl, use some decorum, because you don't know if she's owned already. You don't know what her situation is at all. You don't even know if she's heterosexual. If you're, a male cishet dom. So you really need to not necessarily approach things with caution, but approach things with, with a bit of decorum and politeness. Introduce yourself. Let people know like what you're into. Let them know that you find them attractive in some kind of way. And then a good line that I actually picked up from Miles. Shout out to Miles Cunningham. When he's talking to a girl, he says something along the lines of, "Is there? What did he say? It? Is there anyone in your life that would object to me taking you out?" So something along those lines, right? But if you're coming at it like in the terms of like probing for a dynamic, you could just say, "Is there anyone in your life that would object to me talking to you right now?" And I think that's perfectly fair. Okay. Because there might be somebody in their life, but they're not going to object. They might have, you don't know what the status is or the style and quality of their relationship. They could have no problem at all. So you need to kind of like get some clarity on these things before asserting yourself and assuming. Because dynamics they're very, I don't know, they're varied. There's a lot of delicate intricacies within them. And to just be assuming and kind of like charging in is just, I don't know. I mean, at the very least, it doesn't show that you're relaxed. And I think being relaxed is a paramount quality to being a grounded man, right? Grounded does not mean scattered. Grounded is not high energy. Grounded is not erratic. Uh, like reminds me of like that cartoon movie Ice Age. Remember that like little squirrel thing that's like skinny and the bug out eyes, and who's always very high strung and trying to get that acorn. Um, like supreme level survival instinct, survival behaviors. When someone is in a survival mode, either be it sexually or for food and sustenance, for shelter, for sex, like anything where they're in this state, whether it's real or imagined, and they're in that state of survival for that thing, their behavior is always going to be erratic. It's always going to be hungry. And this can develop into trickery. It can develop into steamrolling. It can develop into being domineering. Um, but when you're content, when you're not starving, when you're not being motivated by that hunger, you can be very relaxed. There's nothing really pushing you to be a certain way. So let's get into a bit of the talking points here about why women crave leadership but punish men who fake the leadership. Because I do have to go a little bit after 12 here. So one of the things that about leadership is that it's influential. There's a, as the kids will say today, there's an aura to it. Okay. So one who has leadership qualities, they have an aura, and that aura is somewhat gravitational. At the very least, it makes them a point of curiosity, where the person near them or observing them says, "What's up with this guy? I wonder what is going on with him. I wonder what he's like. Or maybe just, is this real? Because maybe the person, maybe she's got her defenses up, and she's like, is he real or is he fake?" But leadership has this aura about it. And yes, the aura can be manufactured. There's people who observe, there's guys who observe the behaviors and traits of men and try to copy the things they see and hear, thinking that that's what will make them what they're trying to be. And this is entirely false, because those characteristics are a development of something internal. The internal structure dictates the outside observation, right? Or what's observed externally. And, but so you can't observe the internal structures. You really have to get to know the guy to really understand what drives him and what is he doing internally that is creating these observable characteristics. But women pick up on this, and it's sensed. This isn't a rational sort of thing where a woman's thinking, "Oh, he looks like a leader, I like him." It's not so cognitive in that way. It's something that's felt and sensed. Maybe going along the lines with women's, they talk about women's intuition, right? Which is not entirely foolproof, right? Because women get into all kinds of trouble. And I'd say because of, a number of factors, but it's that part, that intuition, it senses the leadership. It senses that this man could possibly have the capacity to be influential. And I think a lot of girls like to be around influential men. And I think maybe part of that instinct realizes that this sense, this ability to lead, this ability to control and influence, kind of, there's like a subtext there that says, this man can reduce my cognitive and emotional load. And when they actually experience it, when they get to experience a grounded man who is leading and can influence her mind and her emotions, and then through direction, her body, this absolutely does reduce the cognitive and emotional load. And this is because women, they just have that. They have that capacity within them. It's something that is, I would say, fairly common, of having a lot of mental activity, a lot of mental load, and therefore a lot of emotional load. Unless there's some sort of compartmentalization going on, or detachment, or dissociation. And dissociative behaviors are not normal, right? That's usually developed when, there's some sort of unfavorable, unfavorable activities that happened in the past that kind of make dissociation occur as a means of emotional survival. That emotional armor. So then the cognitive and the emotions, they can kind of separate and become a bit compartmentalized. But generally speaking, I would say that when a woman experiences these things, when she experiences a man who reduces her cognitive load, it's tremendously attractive, because this allows her to exhale, allows her to breathe. And when a woman can breathe, when she can really expand her metaphorical lungs, it makes her, well, it makes her better. For lack of a better word, it makes her better. It makes her more expansive. And then when this is also what allows her to soften. And the more she softens, the more she can be shaped, the more she wants to be shaped, the more her spirit, her mind, and her body are willing to be shaped. And this is why, and for this, and the reason why that happens is because real leadership creates safety through clarity, not through control. The control happens, but the safety doesn't come through the control. Often the safety comes through clarity. So what I mean by that is she has a very clear understanding of what you're about, what you're doing, and why. And when she can, going back to the sensing, when she can sense that is motivated by principle rather than lust or insecurity or fear or anger, this is what gives rise to her collapsing within your frame, collapsing within your container. And this is what gives rise to the feeling of safety. Okay. The safer a woman feels, the more she blossoms. That's the basic math of all of this. And the thing about like fake leadership, fake doms and fake men, males posing as men, cosplaying, is that it relies on the things that they've observed of men doing. So it relies on tone, relies on posture, it relies on borrowed language, it relies on optics. Okay, so the guy will present himself in a way that signals that he could possibly be a man, because we have cultural norms, we have visual stereotypes, we have mimetics. If you want to know about mimetics, just look this up. It's a really interesting phenomenon. It has nothing to do with memes whatsoever. Like an actual meme is not the memes that we know today. But sidebar, just look up mimetics. It's very cool. But it's basically the transference of information indirectly from culture to culture through time. And so, but not directly, like here's a book about this thing. It's not like that. But I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But the point is that fake men, fake leaders and fake doms, they will wear what they think is proper behavior, proper appearance, proper talking points of leaders, of men, and with the hopes that this will be a way to leverage like leverage their position and increase their desirability. And I mentioned this on another show where I was talking with that guy Deepak, and he was talking about hey there, kitten. Good to see you, baby. So I was talking to that guy Deepak, and he was talking about how he was giving a student guidance to lie, telling a girl that he was some tantric sex master, which then altered her perception of him, of what he actually was, which was just a loser who had no experience. And I don't advocate for guys getting their shit together first and then talking to girls. I'm just saying that a guy should not lie. To say to a woman that he is something that he is not. Because, as Picasso says, the outcome of every painting is determined by the first stroke. So if you're lying from jump, there's really not good predictions for how things will go from that point forward. I really don't think that you can create something of value through mirage. It's just not right. Like we could put these in categories of right and wrong, it's wrong. It's wrong to create something out of illusions. And to be fair, there's always going to be illusions. Like I know my girl, she sees me in a way, and there's going to be filters, like in the way, like if you've ever been in like a photo studio and the lights, and there's like these colored plastic sheets that you can put over the lights to change the color. There are photo filters, right, that are cast upon me. I know that there is, because we just don't have the capacity, I don't think, within just our human nature to really see things precisely as they are. We can get close, but we always have our biases, we have our fantasies, we have our ideas, we have our emotions, we have our beliefs, and all of these things alter our perception. And so this is what I'm saying, is that, like, even as clear as I try to present myself, there's always the layer of the perceiver and the things that they bring with them. And so if there's already a layer of perception that might not be, or will probably be altering the objective truth of what you're observing, let's not make it more complicated by adding layers that are not true. You're just fucking with the thing. It's better to learn, as you're talking to girls, as you're dating, as you're having sex, as you're getting into relationships, is to learn over time, because it will take time, to present yourself to the world as authentically as possible. Because a lot of reasons why guys don't is because they have self-rejection. They feel that they are not good enough, even for themselves. And so they think that other people are going to see what they see in their own eyes. And this is the first trap. So it's first a process of getting to a point where you're no longer rejecting yourself. And this, it takes work, it takes time, and often it takes a guide. So if you find yourself in that position, book yourself a free consultation. The link is in the description of every video. So, and the thing is about this performance, okay, because, like, let's use that guy as an example, the dude who was lying about being a tantric master. Performances, they collapse under pressure. Whether it's being domineering, whether it's being sneaky, whether it's being charming, whether it's being a comedian, whatever it is, performances always collapse under pressure when the situation calls upon the truth of that sort of thing. So let's say that girl and that guy, they hit it off, they have great conversation, there's flirtation, the tension is increasing between them, and he's like, hey, come back to my room in this hotel here. And so she goes up there, and Unless you've been living under a rock, you have at least like a rudimentary idea of what tantric sex is. Even if you don't know the details of it, you could say to yourself, well, it must be some kind of thing that has to do with like something other than your basic vanilla sex. That it's going to be maybe a mystical feeling in nature. There's going to be possibly some unusual practices or whatever. And if he doesn't know any of that stuff, it'll be apparent that he was lying. The pressure of being able to meet the reality, right? Because the reality is sex. We're talking tantric sex, and he knows nothing of tantric sex. Now he's going to have to like make up an excuse. He's going to have to create something, another lie, because she might be thinking, or maybe she even asks like, oh, are we going to do the tantric sex? And he's like, well, no, like, I need this and I need this and I need this. And I left that stuff at home. And, I'm in a hotel room. The environment isn't quite right. So, maybe next time. And so now he's lying on top of lies. Or maybe he does try it and she feels it. She's like, this doesn't feel like anything beyond just like regular sex. Like, what's so special about this? Like, this is tantric sex. So even if she doesn't like, catch the lie, her instinct is going to be like, this doesn't feel quite right. And so that's why performances, they always collapse, and why you should never have them. You should never be performing. Not because you don't want to be in this position of being some, what the red pillars call a dancing monkey for women. Okay. You don't want to perform for your own integrity. That should be the biggest thing that you push against. And so in a lot of these situations, what women will do is they will test. She will test what is, what's being presented. Okay. So they don't test to dominate you. They test to verify competence. And this competence could be some sort of skill that you may have, some sort of external skill, like maybe you know how to fucking tune pianos. I don't know. But competence is not just for external skills. It's internal frameworks. It's your emotions. It's your thoughts and ideas. It's how you communicate. Anything can really be tested, whether you can touch it or not, whether it's conceptual or non-conceptual. And because they don't want to be fooled, because in their mind, in their heart mind, it's funny. I like the thing about in the East, in Eastern cultures, Japan, China, Vietnam. I'm not sure about Korea or Philippines or Thailand, but I'm sure it's probably pervasive. But there's this concept where the heart and the mind are not two separate entities the way they are in the West. Here we think like my heart, mind, emotions, and body, right? And they're separated into categories. In the East and in Southeast Asia, they have this amalgamated idea that there's a heart mind, and it's one kind of entity. And so they're testing to see if yours is rigid, if yours has form to it. Okay. Because in my experience, the heart mind of the woman is seeking something she can release into. Right. So like I release into her, by way of, let's say, like sperm, but psychologically she releases into me. Emotionally, she releases into me. So it's a co-creation in that sort of way. So she's testing for that rigidity. And this shows up in a number of ways. Okay. Fake guys, they'll be inconsistent. One day they're really bossy. The next day they're really supplicating. One day they're really attentive. The next day they're super distant. One way they're they're speaking clearly and concisely, and then other days they're speaking ambiguously. And you could say, well, maybe I'm doing that purposely just to keep her on her toes. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But be consistent in that and have a reason and a purpose for it. Right? Because when, fake doms and fake men, fake leaders do this, it's not something that's thought out. It's not part of a strategy of containment. That's not what it's for. It's because they just have no consistency. So if you are going to be like that and say, well, I'm doing this just to keep her on her toes, well, then be consistent about it and have a reason behind it. Okay. So they don't test to dominate. They test to see what you're made of. Because she knows that there is fakes. She knows that the number of men are outnumbered by the number of males. And that's just the way things are. That's just nature. And so, and what happens is that, I don't know, something in them, maybe it's that detesting of weakness that a lot of girls have in them. And that detesting can make them just distance themselves, or it makes them angry and want to engage more. Depends on the girl. But the testing will escalate when answers feel rehearsed rather than embodied. When she can just kind of feel like you're using like talking points that you've memorized from, I don't know, some YouTube channel or some book that you read. When it just feels fake. And they're going to be, it's just going to irritate the girl and want to test you more. And then the guy, like, of course, if he's not grounded, he's going to take this as an attack. He's going to say, she's being disrespectful. Well, was it you that started off the conversation with an illusion? With lies? With your tail tucked between your legs? That's how you started. So what do you expect? I'd be irritated too. That's only fair. And so the thing is that, girls, they kind of have this sense that when the performance of leadership is happening, they're seeking the validation of being in charge. And I see this a lot in the community, in the lifestyle, where guys are more fixated on creating rules and structure and control rather than inspiring the emotion in the woman to desire the rules, expectations, and control. Because when she's softened, okay, because of your presence, not because of your rules, when she's softened due to your presence, then that softening actually requires boundaries and control parameters. All right, the control parameters can vary widely from man to man. But so this could be how she communicates, this could be grammar, this could be posture, this could be habits, this could be all sorts of stuff, right? If you can think of a behavior that we do as humans, it could be within the realm of a particular dom's field of wanting to contain, okay? But the thing is that once she's softened, it requires more of this. Okay, if she's rigid into her own and she's guided by her own principles and her own rules, then she doesn't really need them to keep herself upright. Okay? to keep her spirit upright. But when she becomes softer, the more liquid she becomes, then the more defined the container must be. And the funny thing is, though, and because this is kind of like antithetical to what I'm just talking about, because what I just mentioned is only in an early sense. As things progress, and you'll see, like if you go through the video on the stages of submission, that the more she emotionally and psychologically and spiritually submits to you, actually the less control parameters you're going to need, because she kind of settles into that form. Now, this goes against our understanding of physics, but if you could imagine, you pour water into a pitcher. Normal physics says, well, if you pour it out, it's going to assume like a formless form. Okay? Imagine the water defying physics, where you have this water in a pitcher, and it's in there for so long, under certain conditions, that you take the pitcher, you turn it upside down quickly, and you slide it upward. The water just remains in that shape because of the influence that the container had on it. And this is what happens over time when your leadership develops to such a degree. Her submission also develops to a certain degree. It follows. And so it learns to take that shape. And so you need less management, right? Because it's more so about presence and states of being rather than these external parameters guiding behavior. So part of that development is just men, grounded men, leaders. They're not seeking the validation from women. And this is something so basic, right? It's base. It's one of the first like fundamental things, because getting that sorted out as a man changes tons of different behaviors after that fact. After that moment of when you establish within yourself, and not out of resistance, not out of spite, not out of bitterness, that you no longer need women to validate you, but out of stillness. It's not a resisting of concept. It's not a resisting of ideology. It just becomes a place of non-movement. Much in the same sense that, the mountain is not resisting the wind. It's just very still. And so once you get to that point of releasing yourself, of needing validation from women, all of your behaviors change. Your words change. Your thinking patterns change. Your sex changes. Because the guys who want that validation, they're stuck on becoming the best lover she's ever had. Like, that's a concern of yours, because you're also thinking in the same realms of other guys who are also stuck in a performative mindset, who are also seeking validation. So you're all competing against each other of who can impress her the most. And then you're wondering, the guy who doesn't do that really has her by the balls, right? Or like has her by the ovaries. So they wonder, like, man, I'm doing all this stuff trying to be the best that she's ever seen. And then there's this guy who seemingly is not trying quite as hard as me, and he's getting more of her. Some of these guys have all of her. She can't even think without this person in her life. So like I'm saying, like, it makes a huge, huge difference, massive difference of letting go of needing validation. So you can do your best to kind of charm your own mind into thinking differently. You can vehemently be against it, but that's not necessarily going to create a state change. Reframing things absolutely helps, but So because we have the mind and the emotions, but it's a dual thing. You have to hit the emotions as well. You have to release, because you can release concepts, right? The concept that you must perform for women in order to be acceptable by them, right? That's very blue pill, right? If you want to look at it in terms of pills. But release, so you can release yourself from that, from a conceptual level, from a theoretical level. You can let go of those things, understand it, pick it apart, say, okay, this is bullshit. I no longer believe in that sort of thing. But that doesn't necessarily mean your emotions are going to translate. Everything has to go together. So when the mind and the heart are in sync with that particular belief that I do not need to perform for women, I do not need their validation, then the body follows, the behaviors follow this. It's not the other way around. If you act a certain way, that it will cure you of certain mental and emotional ailments. It doesn't work that way. It may seem faster, but it's actually slowing you up, because those things can actually turn into habits. And now you have to deal with unraveling a habit that does not serve you, and then you have to deal with the fundamental issue. But while you're dealing with this, don't stop talking to girls, because that's a needed skill as well. So another thing that really irritates girls, and like I've had to do this with one of my clients. He liked this in the sense that he was explaining a lot because he didn't trust himself. And when a man doesn't trust himself, women can sense that. That's part of not being grounded. They can sense that you don't have your proper footing. And part of that is the explanations. Fear that you're not being understood. Fear that if she does understand you, she's not going to like it. So you use all these extra filler words to kind of smooth things out, to kind of, make what you're saying more palatable. That Mary Poppins song is stuck in my head, just popped in my head. A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. A spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. That's what guys who are fake, what nice guys do, what fake leaders do, is they over-explain things as that spoon of sugar. When I tell him, reduce your words, remove the takeoff, remove the landing, and speak only of the important things when the plane is aloft. The flight, that's the only part that's important, not the takeoff and the descent. Trying to smooth things over so she can, make it easier on her. Stop worrying about making it easy on her. And this is typically like within the realm with this guy of like the things that he wanted like in his relationship, wanted of her. And you have to be really comfortable with dictation. You have to be very comfortable with expressing your desires and your needs, but in a very simple and direct way. This is what I want. My sub, she sent me this something from social media. It was like a screenshot of a text conversation between a man and a woman. And he said, I'm going to be home in 45 minutes. I want you on your knees waiting for me when I get there. And she said, yes, sir. There was no hemming and hawing. There was no extra words. Like all the words that were used was exactly all that was needed. He wasn't afraid. He just said, this is what I want. And it's an incredibly powerful thing for you as the man and for her, because she knows exactly what to do. She has clarity, right? She has complete clarity on what's expected. And so like a lot of guys, they won't do this. They'll hesitate. And that hesitation, it communicates lack of internal alignment, because when you have internal alignment, what gets created? Conviction. It creates cohesion between your thoughts, your words, and your actions. and that creates that alignment. And so when you are hesitating, when you're second guessing, that's what hesitation is, second guessing. You're taking a second thought. That means you don't trust the first thought, because if you did, you wouldn't take a second thought. You wouldn't hesitate. You just pull the trigger. And this is another signal. And it makes the woman feel awful, especially if you're her man, because she's like, fuck, this is my guy. And I'm not saying this like this is what she's thinking. This is a feeling inside. It's a feeling inside that it produces uncertainty. And the uncertainty, it's like her dude. So this can turn into like an affront to her ego. I chose this guy. This is my man. And the survival instinct can't help but repel or be repelled by that. Because the survival instinct says, get yourself around the best that you can. Find the best genes that you can. Copulate with them. Get around like the best just male specimen, right? That also makes you feel safe. Because there might be a great male specimen, but he doesn't make her feel safe. So what real leaders do, especially when it comes to the testing, is that they absorb resistance without defensiveness. So, you know, my girl, maybe I do something wrong, or maybe I do something that I said or didn't do what I said I was going to do. And she comes to me and she says, listen, my lord, you said you were going to do this. And XYZ resulted in that. I'm not going to get defensive. If it's objectively true, I'm going to say, you know what? This girl's right. I made a terrible mistake. And that's it. So real leaders, they absorb because they know it won't destroy them. But fake men and fake doms, fake leaders, they have fragile egos. They may appear rigid, but rigid things snap easily. Right? This is why in martial arts, often bamboo is referenced a lot. Water is referenced a lot, because these things bend when it comes to things that are placed upon them. When energy is pushed up against them, they don't get rigid, right? A very firm tree will snap in a high wind, but bamboos, they just bend. They absorb that force. And men who are grounded, like, grounding doesn't mean rigid. It just means grounded, right? Like an oak tree and, you know, bamboo stalk, they're both grounded, right? They're both in the ground, but one is rigid and one is not. Now, I'm not saying be flexible on your principles. I'm saying be able to absorb and roll with things that are coming at you, like especially from the woman, because that will teach her that you are unfazed, that you're unbothered by, you know, this thing or that. You're not going to get up in your emotions. You're not going to start shouting. You're not going to start crying. You're not going to start attacking her in some sort of like attacking defense. That's not what's going to happen. She's going to see that you are of a quality that does not get moved very much. And this is really important. So, with that said, leadership, it doesn't show very much when things are calm. Leadership shows the most during times of friction, during times of calamity, upset, upheaval, when there's stress. This is when there's confrontation. This is where a man's leadership is really tested. Everybody's a great leader on a beautiful sunny day, when everybody's getting along. Who she really sees that she is with is when there's a problem, is when there's friction, when there's chaos, when there's conflict. And not necessarily looking at the idea of, will he fix it? She's looking at him and seeing, not necessarily thinking, I almost said that, but seeing maybe more from an emotional lens. How is he taking this? Is he absorbing the blows? Is he running from them? Is he ducking? Is he hiding? Is he getting hit and complaining? What's he doing? Because there better not be anything that reminds her of something like herself. Something that gets scattered with a lot of energy, when there are forces applied. That doesn't instill confidence. That says, whoa, this is volatile. This is changeable. Right? I'm supposed to be the embodiment of chaos. Like nature. Nature is chaotic. I'm supposed to be like nature, not my man. My man is supposed to be that concrete bunker in the middle of the woods, right? Or in the middle of the jungle. And so when he's not like that, when he's trying to be deceptive, when he's trying to, duck and bob, weave, skirt the issues, blame shift, or create an illusion, she's going to punish because it feels deceptive. And I think that everyone would agree with me that nobody enjoys being deceived. Except in some circumstances. Like when we pay to be an audience member in a magic show. Like where we enjoy being deceived. Or when you put it in a BDSM scene and we're trying to manufacture a certain perception so that she can feel excited or feel fear or feel bliss. Right? That's manufactured. That's an illusion that she can enjoy. But that's with the context of walking in with the expectation that she's going to be deceived. That's the whole point. So when you're not walking into it with the knowledge of that, then it's just pure deception. And when all of us, when we experience that, it doesn't feel good. We shy away from that. We want to get angry. We get pissed off when we're deceived. Everybody does. So to think that she's not going to get pissed off when she senses that you're being fake, well, don't be surprised when she ghosts you. Don't be surprised if she curses you out. And what this teaches her is that she can't follow you. Because trust is eroded. She can't trust that you're going to lead properly. This is why, like, a lot of girls, like, when they find out, say, like, their man has been cheating on them, yeah, they're not going to like the idea that he's getting sex from some other woman. Sure. But I would say that the greater faux pas there, or the greater offense, is the deception. Because I've said, I may not be completely monogamous in this relationship, but I'm never going to hide it. It's all going to be clear, out in the open, communicative, and saying, listen, this is how I am sometimes. Sometimes I would like the company of a different woman. And you're going to be aware of it. You might even be part of it. It's up to you. But maybe sometimes it's not. But that all comes down to trust. And the more you trust, the more open you can be. The more honest you can be. But a lot of guys, they're not going to be honest. They're going to say, oh, yeah, like, geez, you're the only woman that I find to be attractive. You're the only woman that I want to fuck. No, those girls, they're like invisible to me. Monogamy forever and ever and ever. And for the guys that want to choose that and they're true to it, perfect. But there's many guys who choose it that are not true to it. And they're going against something that perhaps might be just part of their nature. They also might have just an issue with lust. For me, I make analogies to painting and how my sub is like a canvas in which for me to paint. Well, there's different surfaces. You can paint on illustration board. You can paint on watercolor paper. You can paint on linen versus canvas. You can paint on steel. There's many surfaces you can paint on, and they all provide a different experience for the painter and have different possibilities and also limitations of what you can do. That's how I look at it, but that's just me. It's not about like I need to fuck another hole, right? Because at the end of the day, they're not that different from one another. For me, it's the psychological stuff. It's the emotional stuff. Those sort of things that get built. That's where I find the most excitement, the most fun, and the most satisfaction. So it's more important that guys be honest, even if you think that she's not going to like it. Because for you to do something that she might understand, like, oh, if like most guys, they would shy away from this sort of thing. He's coming straight out, basically like just putting his cards on the table and not aggressive about it, but just very matter of fact. It speaks self-knowledge. It speaks self-acceptance. It speaks no fear of rejection, which also implies I'm not trying to win your approval. I'm trying to present you the most honest self that I possibly can. And that has more currency with a woman than lying to her that you are a certain way. And in this context, being truly monogamous. She may not like it, but I think that there's a part of the girl who's going to at least respect it to a certain degree. Not the reverence level respect, but maybe like, yeah, you know what? I don't like that, but like kudos to him for being straight up. Because to go on and be deceived for a long time like that, like I said, nobody likes that. It kills people's spirits to be deceived. So don't deceive women. Be straightforward. And so when you have an acceptance of that, again, this is another opportunity for conviction. You become conviction. Like when you really know yourself and you start accepting all the things about you, you also start learning to adopt certain frameworks and principles that even they reinforce things that are already there. It just makes you even come more into focus even more. So the more in focus you are to yourself, it's a high likelihood that you're going to be more in focus to her. And then when you're having domination rather than being domineering, you're inviting her in. You're saying, hey, look, this world that I'm living in, it's defined. It's defined, it's well established. I know where all the corners are. There's no corner that's in shadow. They all have lights. It's fully lit in here. You're welcome to come in. Oh, you want to stand in the doorway for a little while? That's fine. I understand. Can I get you a cup of tea? Like there's no rush, right? Because a lot of guys, what they'll do is they'll keep their lust hidden into the corner where there's shadow. And they'll be like, no, that's not there. No, come in, have some tea. And there's like drugs in the tea, you know, trying to deceive and saying, no, I'm not really here for that, you know. But the thing is that surely I don't want guys to lie. Yeah, if you want to fuck, you should let the girl know that you want to fuck, that you're sexually attracted to her. But that's a very rudimentary level on communication interaction with a woman. It's much better. And of course, it's not something that's solved like a light switch. It's not done overnight. But taking the time to realign yourself when it comes to things like lust, because it doesn't disappear, as one of my clients thought. So, like a couple of years ago, he was so petrified that he would just stop liking girls and enjoying sex. And I said, no, it's not an excommunication of the dog of lust. All you're doing is leashing it and teaching it to behave. And this is really what allows you to have flexibility. And one of my guys is really starting to wake up to that now. He kind of fluctuates, and sometimes his lust takes over him and he makes certain decisions based from that. And then other times he has it leashed and he then makes decisions based off that. And he realizes that he has more flexibility, more opportunity, more creative control when the dog is leashed, because he can unleash it whenever he wants. It's much easier to take an obedient dog, unleash it and say, go run, versus taking a disobedient dog and trying to get it to come to you and then leash it and then making it stay leashed calmly. You know, like when the situation calls for it. And that's what a lot of guys do. When the situation calls for it, they try to wrangle that beast in and like trying to like force it to stay down. And that's just not the most efficient way to go about this. But so what he realized was that, did you guys hear that? Like my dog just snored super loud. Anyways, he noticed that, and it really freed up his mind. And he was less afraid to create certain things, create leverage points and tension points, and have fun with them. And he realized, and he's like, holy shit, like she's getting really turned on, where she's like practically begging for my dick now. And I'm in complete control. Not necessarily of her, because that's like a secondary set of control that arises from having control of yourself. And this is something he came to realize. And he's like, holy shit. I was like, yeah, when you are really comfortable and you're fully seated in that position, really you're only limited by your creativity, by your imagination. Because at that point, once you're seated, once that dog is leashed, the fear goes away. The performances go away. The validation seeking goes away. The desire to be seen and approved of goes away. And you can be a whole lot more creative. So I need to wrap this up. I need to get out of here. Picking up somebody at the airport soon. So I'm going to let you guys go. But I appreciate you joining me on this relatively short episode. But it's a pretty straightforward topic of why women really enjoy leadership and influence, and why they get so terribly turned off by the replications of these things. So turned off. So if you have any questions, you want to talk about this further privately, because I understand leaving comments can kind of be a little exposing, get in touch with me. Follow the link, the Calendly link. Choose a day and a time that works for you, and let's have a chat. And we can see about how we can kind of point you in the right direction to get yourself out from underneath yourself. Okay? All right. Thank you once again for joining me on the live. Thank you for watching us on the replay. Appreciate you as well. Check the links for picking up my new book, The Codex of the Sovereign Order. It's available on Amazon, as well as How to Be a Dominant Lover. Both of those links are in the description of every recent video. Okay. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon.